Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the STiKS EU, and today we've got a little bit of a special jam-packed, topic-filled show. You know, so many things have been happening in the EU scene from last week's show, so we're all going to be talking about that. Today, I'm joined by my sidekicks, my partner in crime, whatever word you want to call it, obviously Tommey, and today we've actually got a little bit of a special guest, a bit of an unfamiliar face for most people. I think that's fair to say, obviously. You're not the most known person in the community. That's XL Joel. XL, explain who you are.
Okay, yeah, thank you. As Alex said, my name's Joel. I'm the co-owner of XL Esports, one of the upcoming amateur organisations within the European Call of Duty scene. Yeah, it is fair to say I'm not that well known amongst, kind of the pro circuit, mainly because we're quite new as an organisation. Advanced Warfare has been our first kind of venture into Call of Duty esports, but it's gone pretty well so far, and thank you for having me on.
No, it's no problem. Guys, if you can see on the screen, we are kind of playing around with Tommey Esports. He hasn't actually got his webcam on today.
My face is broken.
Yeah, his face is broken. The comments about Scump, him looking like Scump, kind of got to him a little bit, and as a result, he's shy. He's too shy, so that's the reason as to why his webcam isn't working. So
this is all lies. This is all lies.
He does look like Scump. He really does.
Thank you. Thank you.
How? What? Am I the only one that doesn't see it? Like, people are like, oh, you're the British Scump. I'm like, okay. Is that just because I'm ginger or...
Right, the best thing to look at it, guys, everyone in the chat, however many people are watching this show, there's a picture of him now. Let us know that he looks like Scump, because he does look like Scump. Moving on from Tommey's looks, because, I don't want to spend the whole show talking about Tommey, because he might get a little bit of an ego from it. But, yeah, obviously, Joel, you mentioned about XL, about the organisation, about being relatively new. Do you want to just give a little bit of a background as to where you started and what you hope to achieve in the short and long-term future?
Sure, no problem. So it's a co-owned venture between myself and my brother. I recently graduated from the University of Exeter with a management degree. He's currently a trainee lawyer up at Lancaster University. And we've always loved esports. It's always been kind of a passion of ours, particularly Call of Duty. And, we just kind of don't have the time to play to a competitive level anymore. And to be honest, we were never that great. Just throwing it out there. So we decided to start the organisation up back in, I think it was officially launched in November, but we'd been discussing it for quite a while before that. Yeah. And yeah, Call of Duty was the first esport we went into. We have since gone into FIFA as another console esport, and we are looking to expand into, more PC orientated games in the future. Yeah.
So obviously big plans, as it sounds, for the organisation. That's always nice to see. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your first LAN was Am2Pro. Well, I had the pleasure to be working at casting, obviously, if you didn't know. How did that go? I mean, to be honest, as someone who follows this scene quite closely, I was a little bit surprised. I was a little bit confused as to the organisation because, as you said, it was a new organisation. So it took me as a shock. What? You say, Tommey?
I said no one really knew what to expect. Am I lagging or something?
No, it's fine.
Okay, I apologise.
But yeah, obviously...
I'll try and turn up my volume.
Yeah, obviously as a result, no one knew what to expect, especially me. And I was very, very blown away. I was kind of impressed by the branding of XL. I was kind of impressed by how your players kind of conducted themselves. So why don't you talk about that LAN, obviously. I believe you placed top 12, so it was quite a good performance for your first LAN.
Yeah, so obviously when we started the organisation, we knew we were going to have to work our way up to obviously eventually pro status, which is our goal. We're very serious about doing that. But to begin with, we had to get a top amateur team essentially. So we looked at a lot of the online tournaments, Gfinity Cups, MLG tournaments, and our team, they actually have or had quite a lot of pro points at the time. And at the start of Advanced Warfare, they were winning, some of the Gfinity tournaments, getting very close in, the 5Ks and the 2Ks. Yeah. And they didn't have an organisation. So we approached them and said, you guys are doing really well online. How would you like to come to LAN with us? So that's why, despite it being not only our first LAN, but also all of the players' first bar one, that we actually were able to do relatively well. And top 12 is decent for a first LAN. We actually knew they could do better, and the players were kind of disappointed in themselves for not getting at least top 8. But yeah, no one was expecting us even to get that far. So we made quite a name for ourselves, despite obviously being quite new.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that. I mean, I spoke to you. I spoke to your brother as well. I spoke to a few other people behind the organization. It kind of came across the way that you was new to this, but you wanted it correct and you was doing it properly. And obviously, as a result, you had that branding in place. You had a team. What personally, I had no clue who they were, and they impressed me a lot. I mean,
did you get to cast them at all?
I believe I did. I can't really remember because I have a horrible memory, but I believe they did quite well. From what I can remember. Probably wrong. I probably have never casted them. I probably didn't even speak to you.
I genuinely can't remember. We played Kaz and Barrage on main stage. I don't know if that rings a bell.
I probably casted the Kaz game, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. You mentioned about the pro win success. Mentioned about how they're online success. I'm just trying to dust over that because I'm not 100% sure. But you mentioned about the pro point success. And I believe, didn't the team have like a little bit of a stigma? A lot of people could refer to them as like online warriors and so on and so forth for the whole LAN.
Yeah. So yeah, you touched upon the way they conducted themselves and stuff, and that's a big part of what we look for in players, because there are a lot of talented players out there, but the EU scene and Call of Duty players in general, there is a little bit of a stigma around that, and the way they conduct themselves at LAN tournaments and their attitude online and things like that. And it was important for us to pick players that we believed would represent our brand the way we wanted to come across. Professional. Like, don't get me wrong, we love to get hyped and get loud when we go to these events. People may have noticed, but
yeah,
we never want to be involved in any kind of trash talking or abuse or anything like that. And with the Warrior accusations, we have a player in particular, Shawnee, XL Shawnee, was almost renowned for being a Warrior before we went to LAN, and he did exactly what he does online at LAN. And now I think people have just accepted, okay, yeah, actually this kid is really good.
From what I can remember, there was a lot of it was really weird, the trash talk, because from a team what was relatively new, you expect them to be quite immature in the community, that not really saying the stuff they should be. And I was really impressed by the fact that he wasn't trash talking, saying like you're awful, so on and so forth. There was mostly talking about their own team, like, let's go, so and so, you're playing really well. And I like that positivity. It's kind of like a little bit of a different approach to trash talking, where you kind of like not really trash talk, but just hype up your own team. So what I really enjoyed.
You stay focused.
Yeah, exactly. And it's some of those things what really impressed me about the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I would. There wouldn't be anyone happier than me if at the next event you saw more organizations focusing on that. When they're getting loud, the players between themselves in the game, it's like all encouragement as opposed to, criticizing the other team or just generally talking trash. Because, yeah, all right, it can work with mind games and stuff, but it's not gonna help the image of Call of Duty Esports in Europe and the UK when we start to get more media present at these events. We need to display ourselves properly as a more professional industry.
Yeah, and that's what's really important. Like, I keep on saying this, but that's because I'm really happy to see that more managers like yourself and like your brother are taking this more professional approach in the community. It's really good to see. Touching on your online, I believe you qualified for the qualifier. It's really weird, but ESWC did like a qualifier for a qualifier to then qualify to a LAN. Do you just want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so, but just backtracking slightly before that. So obviously when Gfinity announced their age restriction, it caused a bit of a problem for our team because we had a few players above 18 and one below, and we were in a position where we were looking for one. And essentially the team has kind of had to split because the players over the age of 18 want to go to Gfinity, and Shawnee, who is under 18, can't go. So this is a bit of an announcement because it's not actually been made public yet. A lot of people will have guessed already.
All right.
But we have actually formed, it's STiKS exclusive. We have actually formed a new team with Shawnee. It's going to be announced after this show, pretty much, with the guys who played alongside Shawnee in the ESWC qualifier. And as you said, yeah, they won that bracket. They've now qualified for the final bracket, which I think is in April, with 7 other teams, and the winner of that will get to go to ESWC.
So
It's
yeah,
not bad.
so clearly, yeah,
Pretty big chance.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'd like to think so.
The thing about ESWC is it's a global tournament. I mean, it's looking like Optic are going to be going over because he kind of like had a public opinion vote, and I know a lot of the Optic members went there. So it's quite good for a branding point of view from your organization to be in those big events where, you know, you're going to be compared to some of the top teams in Europe and as well as in NA. So hopefully that all goes well for you. And surely as well, if the team are winning qualifiers online, it's a sign of good things to come. It's a sign that they're gelling. So hopefully that kind of helps in the future. And I really want to see this. This thing is, I really want to see this roster do well. And I've just seen the image what goalie has changed Tommey to, and it's amazing.
No.
I've just seen that. So that's why I was laughing.
I'm not happy about this.
That's why I was laughing. I was a little bit confused, and yeah. So I lost composure there a little bit. Moving on. We're going to be talking about the TCM situation later on, but first of all, I want to talk about some of what you touched on about the Gfinity age restrictions being 18 plus. I believe Tommy's done a video about this. I've done a video about this. We both have quite similar opinions about the whole situation. I beg your pardon? Let me say, Tommey.
I said we've all just done a video about it. Everyone's done a video about it, about Gfinity and age group.
Exactly. It's such a massive thing, and as you mentioned, it's kind of affecting your team in the stage where you have a player who's under the age limit. Is that are you going to have a team going to the Gfinity Open, or are you just going to sit this one out and stick with the team what you have?
So we've signed the new team, which is Shawnee, Lewis, Zero, and Cosmic, and they're all under the age of 18. So they're our team as far as we're concerned for all future events. You know, we're focusing on ESWC, Pro Asylum, Amateur Pro 2, lands like that. With Gfinity, we would still like representation at the Open. It's something we're kind of looking at in the background just to see what our options are, because obviously it's going to be a major event, major publicity. You know, it's not like it's going to have the most teams because of the age restriction. It's not got a massive prize pool, but I think just the way that Gfinity produce their events is incredible, and it is going to attract a lot of attention. So for that reason, yeah, we do want to try and get representation at the Open, and ideally at the Masters tournaments as well.
Yeah, I mean, from a situation where I can see from Gfinity's point of view, obviously I worked in production with other organizations, so I kind of can see why they've gone down this road, and I can also see as to why it's such a negative draw for, you know, some of the younger teams, some of the organizations like yourself, where it's kind of a little bit of a bullet to the foot sort of thing. You kind of shoot yourself in the foot, where you want to pick up this team because you're so talented, you've got so much potential, but you, as a result, you're going to have to make a compromise in these tournaments. Tommey, what's your thoughts on the situation?
So, in regards to Gfinity, yeah?
Yeah, about Gfinity and their age range, and how do you think that's going to affect the European community, mostly the UK community in general?
I mean, I think it's obviously, like, putting a cap on it is obviously going to have a massive impact on, you know, just in general, the competition, because, you know, restricting anyone under the age of 18 from competing means that it's going to, you know, drive a lot of people away from the scene, if you will, because obviously there's a lot of young aspiring up and coming players that obviously want to make a name for themselves, but if they can't attend the lands, you know, get the real practice and where you kind of make a name for yourself, it's kind of like they're not going to be interested and go elsewhere maybe. But at the same time, I think someone put it in the chat and said that how, you know, the age rating of the game is 18. So therefore, you know, they're just abiding by kind of the jurisdiction of, you know, age that you're actually allowed to play it at. So, you know, it's a double-bladed sword. At the same time, at one side, that, you know, they're following legislation and kind of what the age rating should be, but on the other side, they're kind of, you know, deferring away people from the Call of Duty scene.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there 100%. I've mentioned that in my video as well. It's good to see that I'm not the only one. I appreciate the fact that, you know, I'm not like just a quiet voice in the corner. Finally, I'm the majority.
No, it's so true.
It is true. I agree with you. And again, talking about how we're having this EU community, recently there's been quite a few announcements, so it kind of caused a little bit of a stir in the community in general. I mean, they announced the whole drift map situation. I'm not really going to talk too much about that. I'm just going to kind of code that a little bit because I don't want to go too deep into that because, pretty much everyone knows in the situation. But Tommey, Joel, what are both your opinions of Activision basically just announcing Drift taking over Biolab, CTF, and Search and Destroy Recovery? I see Tommey already sitting in the corner, so I'll let him go first.
Well, I mean, I just looked on Reddit this morning, and the map itself is actually going to be free. From what I've seen, an Australian member of the community posted saying that a new update's come out and basically makes the map free. So if that is true, it's good because, they're not, Activision aren't being so like quote unquote they're money whores that everyone seems to think they are, etc. But I don't agree with it. I'm going to try and be as brief as possible. I try not to ramble too much, but I don't agree with it basically simply because it's 2 and a bit weeks before champs. It's not a good time to bring it in. And also the maps that it's replacing, Recovery S&D, a great map. Biolab CTF, bit iffy with the spawns, but not the worst CTF map. So in all fairness, I don't think they're taking out the right maps and replacing it with a better map, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to completely agree. It's not... I quite like the idea of DLC coming into competitive play, especially if it is true that they're going to give the map away for free. It just kind of freshens things up, causes teams to have to adapt very quickly. But 2.5 weeks before the World Championship, that's, yeah, for me, that was a bad move on their part. And I do agree with the maps they took out aren't the correct ones to have taken out. A lot of people hate Ascend CTF and Terrace S&D. Perhaps those two would have been better to take out. I don't really know what the basis was that they made that decision on, but if they would have consulted with, the pro players who generally, what they say the rest of the community follows, then I think they would have come to a different decision.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you 100%, especially what you mentioned about the whole Terrace situation, because a lot of people kind of don't really rate Terrace as a good map when Recovery was pretty much, it's safe to say, one of the fan favourites, what kind of made Search and Destroy what it is. I mean, you've seen in the European regionals some really good games in there. We even saw that Epsilon TCM game, what ended in an injured defuse, what was quite entertaining to watch. So it's a little bit frustrating from a spectator's point of view and from a caster's point of view that they're bringing out all these maps, because
it was such a good map.
It was such a good map, and obviously as a result, it means that now I don't know the callouts for a map, and I'm going to be suffering from future events. So that's going to be funny. I don't want that to happen again.
Oh.
But yeah, get the violin out. Everyone cry for me. But yeah, I believe we're going to be taking a quick ad break. Just need to, refresh, sort out my makeup, and yeah, we'll see you in a minute or two. Welcome back, guys. Had a little bit of technical issues. That's the reason why Tommey was scump. I think he's still now scump. It was my fault. Yeah, exactly. It was all his fault, but he's still scump. He's still representing his American cousin of scump. They're not actually related. At least I don't think so. But yeah, obviously, the main focal point, the main reason as to why a lot of people are going to be tuning into this show is just, to touch on the whole TCM aware thing, because that was announced last night in a rather shady way. It didn't really give TCM too much of a good image in the community. Joel, obviously, as a org manager, you're kind of used to these behind-the-scenes dealings. Just want to give your thoughts and opinions on the whole matter.
Okay. So firstly, I think it's an amazing piece of business by TCM. They always say all publicity is good publicity, and now, I mean, most people will have heard of them, but if they didn't, within the scene, they do now, especially in North America. So great move by them. Really, really ballsy, showing some great ambition to go over there, compete amongst the best, represent, European COD scene. And I think the move has kind of divided opinion. Like you said, the way it was done perhaps didn't help. But I think from a kind of, as an EU fan, I'm really excited to go see them play. I hope they do well, because it will show that the top European teams, not the top European team, I have to say that, I think they are second best, but if second best can go out there and be, better than some of the pro American teams, it shows that we are on that level. And I think we will garner a bit more respect from our North American counterparts.
Still a massive move either way. Like you look at it, it's huge for European esports. Just getting kind of TCM, who are already a pretty big brand out here, like kind of well known, and kind of the players that are on their roster as well. So it should just be an amazing opportunity in general.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think obviously it's such a massive opportunity for Moose, Gunji, Judd, and Shane. Thank God I got them all right off the top of my head, because that would have been quite embarrassing if on a European show I got all the names wrong. But yeah, obviously, it's going to be quite big for them. If you missed the announcement, it was last night. It has been a lot on Twitter, so I'd be very, very surprised if you did miss it. But just a little bit of a quick recap. TCM's management brought a weird spot off them in the league. A weird management sold their spot in the league. I believe there's only about 12 teams in the league, so it's quite an exclusive thing. It's not like it's easy to get. It's quite hard to get. You have to qualify, and they brought it without telling the aware roster that it was happening. So I believe like a couple of players were in school, and they literally only realized when people were tweeting and telling them that like
came out and they had no team.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
You have to feel, really awful for the aware players. I mean, that finding out that way. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. I don't know if they had any hint at all that it might be going on. I can only assume it was done for business reasons, perhaps. Obviously we know roughly, I think TCM someone said 5 figures. I saw that on Twitter. I know the full figure is actually undisclosed. It's obviously a good bit of business for Aware. Maybe they needed the cash, or, it just wasn't financially viable for them to continue competing in the league. We'll never know that. I know if I was in their shoes, I know the only reason you would do that is if you had to, and it financially was, a really good deal. But yeah, I mean, awful for the Aware players. I would hate to be in their shoes. They must be absolutely gutted.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of hard to sympathize with them in the sense that it's such a unique experience, and no one's really going to be in that situation. You can only think about how hard it is, especially when I think they brought Aware from 11th to like 5th or 4th in the league. So it's such a massive jump. They're incredibly talented players. It's a little bit sad that they kind of come to this end, but I'm pretty confident that they're all going to find themselves on top teams. I believe I can't remember the exact name. Tommey, help me out here. I believe one of them's gone to Elevate. Am I right? Please be right.
What's this for? Awareness. Sorry, I
think it's
Hugh. It's TJ.
Yes,
TJ.
TJ's like unofficially on the roster, and then Huke was actually in. I think Huke is going to be a sub for FaZe Red. He played yesterday in league matches. And then it's unclear where Happy and Accuracy, I think it is, are going to go. But obviously, they've proven themselves on land to be pretty good players, and I have no doubt like some team will at least pick them up as a sub. But it does really suck, as you said at the start. Like they literally found out as it was announced. So like when they were in school, they were just like, oh, so we have no. And like this isn't like just a league spot. This is like a salary, because $96,000 goes towards players from winning matches in the league. So this is a revenue stream, and for them being in the league is massive in so many different ways.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Joel obviously spoke about it from a management point of view. The publicity that TCM is going to be getting out there, obviously playing alongside the best. I think TCM's first games being in the league, I think they missed their first week of games because obviously the transitional process. But I think the second week they're playing like against, I think it's Optic Gaming, Optic Nation, Prof, and then another really, really top
Optic
team.
Gaming again, I think.
Exactly. So, they kind of been thrown into the deep end, so to speak. It's not really the ideal start you'd want in America to be pretty much playing against, obviously, Optic Gaming, what's considered to be the team in Call of Duty, and then you've got Team 5 Rings and Prof pretty much doing pretty well in the league as well. So they're all very, very talented. It's going to be a little bit of a jumping scale. I mean, I hate saying this because I'm a bit of a European fanboy, but the fact that it's safe to say that the American players are significantly better than European players. again, I hate to say this, it's bringing a tear into my eye. It's breaking my heart even saying this, but obviously they get daily practice. They're earning money playing in the league matches. They got 5Ks, you got 2Ks on the weekend. So I feel as if this is going to really help TCM, especially just before champs, to get some much needed practice. However, it's kind of also give some of the American teams a little bit of information about how TCM plays, because they don't have that mysterious like wild factor that Epson have, just like the Australian teams had last year in the COD champs, where no one knew how they played, no one knew anything about these teams, and obviously as a result they kind of surprised a few people. So I feel as if like it can't counteract, but it's going to be more positive than it is negative to TCM.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's quite a lot of people within the EU community that were saying it's bad for our community that they've moved out there. We've lost a top team. It shows that there's not enough at the top of the game here in Europe to kind of warrant teams staying. And I was a bit surprised by those comments, purely because when Swanee moved over to ON, then everyone was really supportive, everyone was really happy. They were saying, go do it for Team Europe, it's going to be great. It's going to show that we're amongst the best. Like, I feel the same way about TCM's move. Like, it's like football, In football, the best players from South America don't play in South America. Yeah. They play in Spain or England.
Yeah, very true.
That's a good point, actually.
I just feel like that analogy is the most fitting one. And yeah, so what if in Call of Duty Esports that when you reach the top, you move to America? Isn't that just as good as a dream for European COD players, to reach the top of the game over here and then transfer across? Like, why not have that as an ambition? I think that's brilliant.
It's actually a really different approach of looking at it. Again, like I never really thought about it like that, but that's actually a good point, is how obviously, yeah, that's actually a good analogy. See, this is what I mean. This is why I bring you onto the show, because you just like blow my mind with these amazing analogies. Again, so the American viewers might be like, what's football? Like, what's football? But,
it's not soccer.
We know what we're talking about.
Soccer.
We know what we're talking about. The Europeans hopefully got that. But yeah, I believe they're actually having a team house in Philly. I think it was announced on the ES report or the esports report that they're having a team house in Philly. What I believe is on the East Coast, if I know my geography correct. Please be right, otherwise that's going to be really awkward. My geography is amazing, apparently. Goalie's just confirmed that. The resident American has just confirmed this. So I'm very happy with myself. Again, we're Rocky's film, so hopefully you're going to see some like motivation, some wow, I've just realized I just did that. Some motivation from obviously being the underdog, and hopefully as a result it's going to really help them out. The connection thing, everyone says a team house is so beneficial. Hopefully that's the case, because I really want to see TCM doing well. I don't want to see them rock bottom of the league. That should hopefully be the case. Do you think
Warriors?
No, I'm just saying it helps, I mean, we see how much it helped TK when they was like not doing too well in the league. They moved into their team house, and then all of a sudden they played significantly better, and obviously as a result they're now considered to be one of the top teams up there. I mean, took a math off Epson a couple of weeks ago in the last event, obviously other than regionals. But yeah, do you two both think that team houses are such an important factor, and do you think that that's going to help TCM or hinder them in the way that they're kind of butting heads together and getting onto each other's toes?
No, I think it's vital. You only have to look at other esports such as League of Legends, where the majority of the pro teams do it. I think we absolutely need to have more people moving into team houses, and as the industry professionalizes, I think that's the route it's going to go. I within 5 years I want an XL team house. Absolutely. Like, I don't think it's not a ridiculous ambition.
Ambitious.
Well, I don't see it as ridiculous. Like, long as you if the industry keeps growing the way it is, and companies like Gfinity keep pushing the UK scene as much as they are, then there should eventually be enough money in it to warrant investments on that scale. So yeah, they absolutely should be in a team house, and it's going to help them no end. Bonding, just getting better team chemistry. I think it was who was it that said? I think it was Jake said that he learned more in 2 weeks at the sort of boot camp in Marseille before regionals than he did in sort of 2 months playing at home. I mean, there's a testament from a pro player. So yeah, I think it's a good move.
Then Tommey, obviously your thoughts on the matter at hand?
I honestly think that I completely agree with you, Joel, if I'm honest. Like the team house, the whole point of it is obviously to have all of the players based in one house, and obviously gain just mass amounts of chemistry. And they're not obviously like, yeah, they may have the odd, argument or falling out or whatever because someone's used someone else's toothbrush. But the main point is, like, they can literally get onto practice all when they need to. And, like, just, they can watch film if they need to. They can, like, because they're all together, if they, come out of a tournament early or something or make a mistake, they can literally just speak to one another directly and just say, look, here's what we should have done. Here's what we didn't do. This is how we're going to move forward and rectify the problem.
I agree. I especially love your toothbrush analogy. I thought that was very, very touching and personal. Tommey, you're kind of the drama alert, kind of like the important person who knows it all. I believe you did a video about this whole situation. Do you want to talk about the whole situation with Vitality and Gotaga and Millenium? Because personally, I don't speak French, so when the like just tweet out massive twit longers in French, I am just sitting at my computer like, bonjour. I have no idea what's going on. So let me know what's happening, Tom.
Right. So first of all, I don't speak French either. Just let's clear that up. But basically, so yesterday a big announcement came from the European scene in the sense that Gotaga, who's been a part of Vitality since like middle of Call of Duty Ghosts, I think since he actually started playing competitively near enough, he's actually going to move from Vitality to Millenium. My kind of theory behind it, this isn't by any means true, but they had a LAN at the weekend. It's called like South LAN events or something. I don't know what it was. And they placed third at a LAN that was basically only like French teams. I think the only other one I really knew was Hyper Games, and they realistically should have won. But them not winning maybe, turned Gotaga's head to think maybe, Vitality isn't the future, because obviously he wants to win, and they came third in a tournament where they realistically should have won, considering they qualified for champs. But the move over, it comes as a bit of surprise from my standpoint, at least, because he's always been a staple on that team, and then obviously he's gonna be with Vitality still for champs, because the roster with Riskin, Dilux, and Getsum, I think it is. He's gonna still be with them for champs. Obviously they've already had a roster lock for that, but for Millenium he's gonna be on that roster for hopefully the ESWC qualifies. But there's obviously you guys probably know that the ESWC are doing like a voting thing for the French teams, and with Millenium having Gotaga and already being such a dominant kind of organization, I've no doubt that they'll get voted in.
I personally think that's exactly why they want. Well, not exactly why, but that was definitely a factor of why they did it now before champs. They perhaps knew that vote was coming out. They wanted, he's a hugely popular player in France, and I think they probably wanted that, extra weight he would bring to their campaign to try and get voted in. Don't know if it's true, just a theory. And I think he's going to play with his brother. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, his brother's called Carbon. He goes by the Gotaga Carbon. They've teamed before in the past, if my Modern Warfare 3 GOAT, like Black Ops 2 knowledge is correct. Don't quote me. Pretty certain they've teamed before. Then Carbon went on his own path with some teams of some like younger players, newer players, and I believe they actually got to the stage where they nearly qualified for G3, but they was too young, so they won their qualifiers. But then everyone realized that, hang on a minute, he's not old enough to actually play. So then, they got kind of kicked out of the qualifiers. So he's a really talented player. He's just never really had the opportunity to play with a top organization before, I believe. Don't quote me again. I'm not an expert in the French community. So it's good to see that they're kind of teaming up together. It's going to be interesting. I think they're like the only two brothers to play like competitively at a pro level, maybe. So that's
me and Kieran. I mean, we've dabbled, but no, I think it's really cool. I mean, I'm very close with my brother, and if they're as close to each other as we are, then I'm sure they can have an absolutely great time playing, on main stage with each other. I think that's brilliant. Fair play.
I think, to be honest, Carbon, obviously the younger brother of Gotaga, he has such a good opportunity here. I mean, obviously Gotaga, he really doesn't need too much introduction. Sponsored by Red Bull, the French monster. It's kind of it's his title now. It's like he's considered to be the best player in France. He's the biggest name in France. He's the nature of France. Again, a lot of Americans are going to hate me for saying that. But, obviously as a result...
It's true, though.
Carbon's kind of got that situation where he can kind of follow in his footsteps. He can really use this to his advantage to help build his personal brand, as well as obviously see success, because the team what he's on, I believe it's actually... got it written down in front of me. It's obviously Gotaga, Carbon, and then Carnage and Mello. Carnage and Mello, obviously on that Millenium roster beforehand when they played with Jake and Marky B, and obviously were rated for the champs. They're pretty solid. I mean, Carnage and Mello have become a little bit of a duo. Mello is such an incredibly talented player. I think he's 17. or he might have just turned 18. So he's such a talented player. Carnage, he's a legend in the French community. He's been around pretty much since, COD first came out. That's not true. So it's quite interesting to see two legends in the mix of Carbon and Gotaga forming together with these two new faces in the community of Carbon and Mellow. I think I could say Carbon rather than Carnage. That was a little bit weird. Yeah, that was awkward. But talking about that, it means that Vitality don't have a roster. Broken is kind of been tweeting on the Twitter, so I have a feeling that Broken's going to be still with them. Then we also heard the whole thing with Tommey and Storm. Storm obviously was an organization set up by the Vitality investors, and now they've kind of come to the stage where Vitality doesn't have a team. Let's put 2 and 2 together. So I believe they announced themselves as Vitality.Storm is the team name. Tommey, do you know anything more about that?
So, from my understanding, as you say, that is correct. Obviously, Tommey made it very clear in his video when he actually left Vitality that, he did want to, at some point, make, a Vitality UK at the time it was being called, with, I think, the owner of Vitality or something along them lines. But obviously, with Vitality already having the team they had, it couldn't happen. But now, obviously, with Gotaga off the roster and potentially, that whole roster basically just disbanding after COD Champs, him and the manager or the owner of Vitality are going to come together to obviously make Vitality.Storm, as you say. So it should be really interesting. It's going to be, I think, a UK-based team, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, the problem before was the fact that it was French-based, what meant just for Tommy's sake, it wouldn't work because obviously, as it was on Vitality, it didn't work because of the kind of the barrier with the language. But I'm really kind of intrigued to find out. I don't think anyone's been announced to be being picked up yet, but obviously we'll soon find out. But I just wanted to ask Joel a quick question about this. Like, do you reckon Tommey is better off staying with Epsilon, or do you reckon he's better off doing this kind of branching out to make his kind of own team? And do you think that's more of a sustainable option in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I suppose you have to think about it short and long term. Obviously in the short term, Epsilon, best team in Europe, going out to champs, they need to be, fully prepared. They don't need their heads turning, to any future opportunities or anything. Obviously, there's all the rumors flying around about Swanee potentially going back to America after champs. Right now, they just need to focus on champs and get their heads down. Long term, I mean, if Swanee does go, then obviously, they're missing one of their key players already. So that's a decent time to move. I know Tommey said when he originally announced Storm that there was, nothing going on with the Epsilon boys moving with him, but you never know in Call of Duty. You just don't. I mean, I don't know what the contractual situations are with those guys. But there's every possibility that maybe one of them will go with Tommey. I really don't know. I wouldn't, don't want to speculate about it too much, with respect to Epsilon. And also long term, I guess, depends what Tommy's role is going to be in the new Vitality.Storm. If he's going to be more than just the captain, if he's starting to learn behind the scenes, the business stuff, then when he retires, he's got a career in esports, which is a really intelligent move. So thinking long term, I think it's a good move. But obviously in the short term, with all this going on, I just hope they're not getting distracted with their preparations for champs, because I really want them to do well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is what I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head. It's a wonderful place in my head. My brain comes up with all these genius ideas and these not so smart ideas. I've kind of been speculating the fact that if Epsilon go on and do well, Mike Cat and Josh are surely going to stick with Tommey and move over to Storm. Again, as you mentioned, there's contracts involved. All these top organizations have contracts. A lot of them are salaried. So there's a lot of legal implications behind it. So whether it'll have to be a transfer fee and so on and so forth, that's yet to be seen. But I really can't see. I mean, if Epsilon do well at champs, if, finish in the money or even, finish top 3, hopefully they do. It's going to be like a little bit, it's going to be a little bit weird to see that team, if they do really well, to split up and see Mad Cat and Josh maybe staying with Epsilon or finding into more teams as their own. Because, we've already speculated that Swanee's probably going to be going back to ON. However, ON looking very strong as well. They've qualified for regionals. So for all we know, ON could stick with their regionals team they have now if they're doing extremely well. So it's all yet to see. I have a feeling that it's going to kind of it's going to be interesting for the future when after champs, all the teams are placed well, see where Tommey goes, see who comes on that team, because Storm, obviously Tommy's a top rated player. He's not going to want to be playing with players who, aren't considered to be the best. That's not how he wants to brand this organization. Obviously Vitality as well, top organization. So they're not wanting some new players. They're wanting the big names. And as of right now,
But does that mean potentially that, sorry to cut you off, but like, does that mean potentially like we could, as Joel kind of suggested, see him go into more of like an ownership manager kind of role, or maybe even like kind of like a coach? Because obviously, like, I think the reason he moved to Vitality was he was thinking about his future. At Vitality, much more high profile. You're going to gain kind of a more of a following, and hopefully that can lead to something big at the long term. But I get kind of the impression that he's doing this to try to make this a career for him and make it more sustainable.
Yeah, I don't think he's intending on stopping playing anytime soon. At least I hope not. He's still one of the best players, if not the best in Europe, and I personally think that puts him up there in the world. We'll have to wait and see how champs goes, but yeah, obviously with that long-term goal in mind, it could turn out to be a really intelligent decision.
Well, I believe Vitality, when he actually moved over, it was kind of looking a little bit better. Vitality wasn't doing the best when he joined that team, but Vitality is Vitality. They have so much financial backing from sponsors. Obviously, that means that, I don't know for certain, but it's pretty safe to assume that he probably was getting a better salary than he already was on. The fact that, they've got branding, everyone knows the French fans are insanely crazy. So to have that support behind you is just going to be godly. And now, I'm just going to end it there because I just realized we rambled on so long about that Vitality French situation. So we're going to be talking about some questions on Twitter. Kingdom Soldier tweeted out. We all retweeted on the STiKS channel. If you have any questions to ask about, what's happening in the future, we are going to tweet them out, let them know, and we're going to answer them. So I believe we've had a few questions coming through. We're not going to do too much because, the show's kind of run on for a little bit too long. Tommey, I believe you've got the first question for everyone at home to see.
So the first question is coming in from @Strange's Beast or something like that, and he's basically asking, what do you think of the Aware not even telling their players? The likes of TJ and Hugh were tweeting out saying, obviously, they found out during school. I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but obviously, what do you think of it exactly, Joel?
Okay, it's not how I would have liked to have done it. Now, I'm not saying that the players necessarily, deserved to have a vote, because we all know what their vote would have been. And in business, your employees, if you want to sell the company, and someone comes in with a really good offer, you don't have to consult every single one of your employees to ask to do it. They were well within their right to make that decision, but out of respect for their players, it's something that I wouldn't have just dropped on them like that. At least privately have told them first. It's like finding out you've lost your job by text from not even from your manager. So it's not the way I personally would have done it. I completely understand, based on my assumptions, why Aware, ownership did it, and why the players didn't get a say, but they certainly should have been told.
Yeah. Personally, I feel as if you've hit the nail on the head, especially the whole thing about the text. It's basically as if your replacement came up to you in the streets and said, "I'm your replacement. You no longer have a job." So it's a little bit of a kick in the teeth, As an Aware manager, knowing that they're such a big organization, knowing that they have teams in both the European scene and in the NA scene, they're a massive org. The fact that they've done it like this is kind of a little bit of a black mark next to their name. It's not really going to give them too much of the best image in the world. TCM, you can kind of understand, as much as they regretted doing it, I believe the manager said, they didn't want to do it this way, but it's the only way they had to do it. So, yeah, TCM are obviously going to get a little bit of flack for it, but not as much as the Aware boys who, as you said, from a manager point of view, you're wanting to let them know way in advance so they can actually have plans beforehand. Anyway, that's going to be that question answered. Second question, and it's going to be the last question because, I'm sure everyone's got a lot more plans for the evening. We don't want to keep you too much. Second question is coming in from a long-time viewer and, basically a legend, Swag_LP, also known as Paddy. Kingdom Soldier, how well do you think TCM will do in Season 2 now they've got a spot? So I'm going to kind of throw this question over to Joel, then to Tommey, and then I'll answer it.
Okay. TCM are a top team. I think, potentially when it comes to game modes like Uplink, I think they're going to have a very fast learning curve. I think the Americans generally play that game mode a lot better than we do over here in Europe. They don't miss their shots. They play very aggressively. So I meant like throws with the ball, not like shots.
Yeah, I know
TCM.
you meant.
Yeah. In general, I think they're going to do fairly well. I don't think they're going to finish bottom, but I mean, I can't see them finishing, top 3 or 4. So I'm going to go solid mid-table, and I think they'd be pleased with that.
Okay, well, I think I do kind of agree with that comment. Obviously, with the team house, it's going to factor into how they do because we all know we've seen from the likes of AR with a team house, even OG and etc. With their team house, etc. Team house does bring you up the table. Also, Team Caliber, another team to mention, they were like in relegation and then brought themselves up to like 7th or 6th. And I would have to say the same. I don't think they're gonna beat the likes of OG, FaZe, TK, Envy, Denial, but I reckon they'll come maybe 6th, something around there. I reckon. Yeah, that's all I have to say really.
I'm not gonna lie. I did a little bit of note jotting in front of me before the show started. I knew this question was gonna come up, and I kind of wrote down in a little bubble 6 to 8 because I kind of think that's going to be the place they're going to be finished. And I don't think they're going to finish in last because the caliber of the players on that team just don't. I don't see them finishing last. I understand obviously Americans have practice, but I feel as if the first couple of weeks they're going to really surprise a lot of the teams who kind of underestimate them because they don't know how any European players play and so on and so forth. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But again, eventually when teams suss them out, realize how they can play, realize that we can't throw an uplink satellite to save our life. I would think that's going to kind of not really like help in the favour. And as a result, I feel as if they're going to finish mid-table, so 8th all the way to 6th. I'm thinking maybe around towards the lower end, towards the 8th side of the spectrum, towards the 6th.
And if they do have a bad first season, hopefully they don't get relegated. But I'd really be disappointed if they make this move over there. They've taken a European side, and then they drop a player and pick up an American. Like if they do go 100%. Over, and they drop someone, I really hope they keep picking players from the EU community. Give us that outlet, give us that ambition for the top players to go over and play in the Pro League so that we have at least one European team at the top level. I really hope TCM feel the same way about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to be a lot of hard work for them to actually finish anywhere towards the top end of the table. A lot of people are kind of rating them to kind of be a flop. Obviously, as a European, I don't want that to be the case. I want them to finish mid-table and use that as a stepping stone. They're not going to be coming into the league expecting first place, second place, third place. At least I hope they're not, because that'd be a little bit optimistic. You'd expect them to, aim to finish around mid-table and then use that as an advantage and stepping stone, and hopefully to the stage where they're pushing for top 3 in the league. Anyway, that's going to be the end of the questions, and that's going to be towards the end of the show. So as we usually close off the sticks, we're going to have 30 seconds of each person, each guest, to kind of close out. So I'm going to throw it to Tommey, then Joel, and then I'll close off the show. Just have 30 seconds talking about, any shout outs, any final words you want to say about the whole show. So Tommey, over to you.
Okay, just first of all, thanks for everyone who's watching. Thanks to Joel for obviously coming on and having this great discussion with us. In terms of shout-outs, just shout out to Ready Up Gaming. I write articles over there for them. You can find my links to everything down below. There should be like loads of links to my YouTube and Twitter and etc. And just, generally thanks for everyone that did come out and watch the stream.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me on. It was a pleasure. Hopefully, I haven't caused too much controversy with any opinions or anything. And if the viewers don't already, I'd really appreciate if you could throw our organization's Twitter page a follow. It's at XL, as in Microsoft XL, _ Esports. So just have a look for us, chuck us a follow. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thanks a lot for having us. Thanks a lot for having us. Thank you for coming on the show. Wow, that was a horrible way to start this closing. But already choked. Again, everyone send your best wishes to Tommey. Hopefully he feels a little bit better about showing his face for the next show, because he is still taking these skunk comments. He's taking these skunk comments to heart. So make sure, You send him his love. Make sure he doesn't look like scum. Guys, make sure you look down the bottom because that's where we've got the codes for 5% off your Scuff gaming controller. You know, there's a reason as to why they're used by the majority of pros. So use the code STiKS for 5% off that when you get to the checkout. And make sure you use the code KINGDOM for 10% off your Gamma, your G Fuel, you know, to get you pumped before a game and after. And I've been Alex, also known as iRage. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place for the next show.